Here we are, we're at Mama Lucia's on our city tour. This is a tequila place. We're going to learn a little bit about tequila here. At least that's what I was told.
Prepared for you. They consist of a plate of 2 tacos, one of beans and the other one with pork rind. And then we have also fruits with it and chips and guacamole. Okay? The price of one plate is $6 and you can buy it with my friend over here. Then another friend is going to serve you up there. And after about 10 minutes, then we're going to start the tour right here, okay? So I think we're ready. And so welcome here to our fabulous distillery.
You want pineapple?
So this is a thing that has been going on for 5 generations now. So since my great-grandparents, they were the ones who initially knew how to make tequila, raicilla, pulque, mezcal, and other alcoholic beverages. But they only did it for themselves. They didn't sell any of it. They just shared it with friends and family. So when I was about to be born, about 24 years ago, that's when my parents finally got the permits to turn everything into a proper business. So we've been in business for that long. So any question that you have at the end of the tour, you can freely ask it. I've been raised between agaves and I was almost literally baptized in tequila. So really anything that you want to ask, go ahead. So the first thing that I always like to mention about tequila is something about another Mexican drink. This mezcal. Have some of you heard about mezcal? Yeah? Okay. So mezcal is an Aztec word that means cooked agave. So any beverage that's made out of cooked agaves, it's a type of mezcal. The only difference between all of them is which type of agave that you're going to use. So the agaves, each one has its own distinctive properties. And there are about 270 varieties of agave. But you can only use the ones that are grown naturally around the place where you're at. So you cannot bring agaves from other place to this place and make your own mezcal from them. So in the town of Tequila, the most abundant type of agave that there is the blue agave. So because of the historic relationship between the town and this plant, is that you can now only produce tequila out of the blue agave. If you produce it from other types of agaves, it's now a mezcal, and tequila, even if it is a type of mezcal, it's its own thing separate. So this agave plant is the one that we have planted all around us, and it's usually the one that you're going to see for decoration purposes. So this plant takes a very long time to mature, usually between 10 to 12 years. And when it is ready, it's going to sprout a trunk in the center, a really high trunk, and it's going to flourish this way in order to reproduce itself. But by doing so, it's going to become useless to us because it's going to use up all of the resources that it has accumulated. So we're going to wait out for the plant to grow as big as possible, but we're going to cut it off before it starts to sprout. So the best time to cut the agave is between 8 to 10 years. That's the time when a guy called Jimador, he's going to chop off all of the leaves from the agave, and he's going to leave only the center. And this is what we're going to use. So after we chop off the leaves, it's going to look like this papier mache. Of course, this one is fake, but it is accurate in size of an 8-year-old plant. So that's actually as big as they grow, the whole center, and that is plus the leaves. So they're so big, we have to cut them by half, or sometimes even in 4 pieces, so that we can cook it properly. And that's the next part of the process. So that volcano-like structure that you see over there, that's the oven that we use. It is stainless steel on the inside and has the trucker around it covered in clay, so that we won't burn ourselves while it is on. This because it takes 3 days to cook the agave and another 2 to 3 days to cool down. And what cooking does to the agave is that it breaks down everything inside of it, turning the insides into sugar. So it's gonna come out really soft and really sweet. You can actually eat it. Have you tasted the sugar cane? Have you taken a bite from the cane? So the agave plant, when it's cooked, it has exactly that same texture, but it is a lot softer. It doesn't have that much juice and has a lot of pulp. So this pulp is what we need. So we're gonna take all of the agaves out. We're gonna chop them up in little pieces, and then we're gonna grind them. the only real purpose of the grinding is to spread out all of the fibers and release the pulp. But we are going to try to use as much wood as possible. So that trunk, that log that you see over there, which is hollow on the inside, that's usually how we grind the agave. We just lay out the pieces inside, take the other stick, and mash it all down. So the next part is just to take all of those fibers. We don't really care much about the juice below. We care more about the pulp. So we're going to take all of those pieces and we're going to put them in a barrel such as these blue ones behind me. And then we're going to fill them up with water and we're going to leave them by themselves open. So the next part of the process is fermentation. Fermentation is when a bacteria called yeast turns all of the sugars into alcohol. There are several types of yeast that you can use to make this process even faster, to make it yield a little bit more alcohol, to make it add like different flavors or aromas. But what our grandparents taught us was not to use any type of specific yeast at all. We're just going to use the natural resources around us. So that's why we grind it in the wood, because some of that wood chips into the mixture and helps us out with this part of the process. The other thing that is going to help us out is that we leave the lid open. Yeah, we're going to leave the lid open. So this is going to help the yeast in the air fall down into the barrel and do the process at its own pace. Usually this happens, well, if we're lucky, this is going to take 7 days. But usually happens between 11 to 15. And by the end of this time, we're going to have juice that has a lot of alcohol in it. Also, as a byproduct, it's going to release a lot of methanol. And as you may know, methanol is completely toxic to us. So that's where the distillation process comes into place. To get rid of all of the bad stuff and keep only the alcohol, which is what we've been looking for. So this, what you see over here, this is the distiller that we normally use. This is a Philippine model, which was one of the ones that the Spaniards brought here to Mexico. So in the past, the Indians already knew how to make their own mezcal, but they did it with little clay distillery. Only a small amount, good enough for the kings, and only on special occasions. So when the Spaniards brought this technology, they brought the means to produce a whole lot more of tequila and mezcal. Okay. So yeah, that one works by putting all of the fermented juice inside a copper pot underneath that wooden frame. Then we're gonna put the piece in the center back. We're gonna take some of the leaves from the agave and we're gonna grind them to turn them into a paste. This paste is gonna help us seal up the distiller at the bottom, at the top, and whatever we may see cracks, so that we can, so that none of the things inside escape. So then we're gonna put the burner below, and it's gonna make everything inside evaporate. None of it will escape. It will flow up through the trunk all the way to the top. And in the top we have another pot that has cold water running all of the time. So that when the vapors come in contact with the cold pot, they're gonna condense. The liquid is going to fall into a pan in the center and slide down through there to the outside. The first thing that is going to evaporate is the methanol. So we have to wait out for that to stop dripping. Then we're gonna change the recipients, and now we're gonna be catching the alcohol, which is what we finally were looking for. But this alcohol is going to be very highly concentrated. We can't just drink that. And it's also going to be too impure. So we have to put it back through the process of distillation yet a second time. And only after the second time, now we can finally call it tequila. So virtually when you get to that point, you're done. You could just bottle it up and it's ready to go. You could just drink it. And that's what my great-grandparents used to do. They would just make a large batch, wait out for the town party, finish everything up, and wait out for the next year to produce another one. But if you take that tequila and you keep it stored in the white oak barrels, two things are going to happen. The first is that it's going to age a lot faster in the wooden barrel than in the crystal bottle. And this aging is going to make it smoother over time. The other thing that's going to happen is that it's going to soak up some of the properties from the wood. So it's going to take the flavor, the color, and the smell from the type of wood that you use to make the barrel. So the longer it spends there, the more intense all of those properties become. And that's the difference between the types of tequila that there are. How much time have they spent in the barrel? So the tequila blanco is the one that has come out straight out of the second distillation into the crystal bottle and never has been aged in the barrel. That's the reason why it is completely clear, because theoretically this should be only water and alcohol. But if you keep this in the barrel for less than a year, now it's called a reposado. That means resting. And if you keep it for a year onwards, it's going to be called añejo. So the añejo is going to be the one that is smoothest and the one which has most flavor from the wood, whereas the blanco is going to be the roughest, but the one which has most flavor from the plant. That's the main difference between those. And the reposado, it will sit in the middle because it still has some of the flavor from the blanco, but it already acquired some of the flavor from the wood. Okay? So that's the difference between the tequilas, and that's the way that we make tequila. Are you ready to try it? I can see you're very excited.
Woohoo!
So I'm gonna give you a cup each, and then I'm gonna be serving the tequila, and I'm gonna pour a bit. You tell me how much you want. If you want a little bit, you tell me poquito. If you want a lot of it, then you tell me mucho. But don't just drink it, because we have a special way of drinking our tequila, okay? So we're gonna be passing the cups.
Don't just drink the tequila.